Hi guys, my name is Hannah Smith and I am the Recycling Outreach Coordinator for Wood County. And today I'm going to talk to you about natural resources and recycling. Recycling is really important because it saves natural resources, which helps us save the planet. Let's get started. So I work for the Wood County Solid Waste Management District, and we have been around since 1988. So we have some really important roles here at the Solid Waste District. And our most important role is to handle all of the waste that's created within Wood County. So we do this by overseeing a recycling program and we oversee the Wood County landfill. But we don't want all the waste to go to the landfill. So my job is to help teach people like you about recycling so we can reduce our landfill dependence through the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. We do pretty well with recycling here in Wood County. Up to 50% of the waste that is created goes to the recycling bins. And you are more than welcome to use our 24/7 drop-off sites. We have 12 of these sites within Wood County where we take all the recycling from your homes. So what does recycling actually mean? When we talk about recycling, we're making a new product from an old one. And there's a few different types of recycling. The first is pure recycling. That means the new product is the same quality as the old product. So one example of recycling is taking an aluminum can. And if we put this in the recycling bin, within 30 days, this aluminum can become a new aluminum can, or it might become an aluminum coffee container. But it's the same quality product. We also have something called upcycling. So that's when we take an old product and we turn it into something that has an even better quality. So an example of upcycling could be an old pizza box, and I turned the old cardboard into an arts and crafts project. So one of my students made a cardboard piggy bank and decorated it. So this is an example of upcycling. The last category of recycling is something called downcycling. So that's when the old product turns into something that has less quality. So when we downcycle things, usually they can't be recycled again. So for example, you might take an old water bottle, and when we put this in the recycling bin, sometimes our plastic turns into things like carpet, or it might turn into a fleece jacket. And there's still new products, but things like carpet and fleece, we can't put right back into the recycling bin. So they've come to the end of their useful life. But why is it important that we recycle? There are several reasons that we should all recycle. First, it saves a lot of energy. So this aluminum can, if I recycle it, it takes 95% less energy to make a new can than it would if I mined the materials from the earth and created a virgin material. It also creates a lot more jobs. So for every 10,000 tons of waste, only one landfill job gets created, but up to 20 recycling jobs can be created because we're reusing resources. It also helps us reduce waste. So everything that goes into the recycling bin gets a new life, whereas when it goes to the landfill, that's where it's going to stay for tens of thousands of years. Recycling is much more sustainable. So we reduce our air pollution, our water pollution, and our effects on the earth. And like we're going to talk about in more detail, it saves resources. We don't have to mine to make these materials. We already have the resources we need from our recycling. So what is a natural resource? A natural resource is a raw material. So these things come from the planet and we use these resources to create new products. So some examples of natural resources might be like petroleum for oil, timber, water, and wildlife. These are all examples of natural resources. And there's two categories of natural resources. We have renewable and non-renewable. So renewable resources we can use again and again and again. There's an infinite supply. That means we can use as much as we want and it's not going to impact the amount there is. But a lot of the resources we use have a finite supply. They are non-renewable. They're mined from the earth, and once they're gone forever. So some example of renewable resources might be wind power, solar power, and geothermal. Non-renewable resources are things like coal and oil, natural gas, minerals. We only have so much of these. Unfortunately, most of our products are made from non-renewable resources. And non-renewable extraction to make these products has a lot of damaging effects on our planet. So we're going to talk about steel, aluminum, and plastic. All of these materials are mined from resources in the earth, and we're going to see what that process looks like. So this is an example of steel mining. To extract the iron ore needed to create steel, they do what's called strip mining. So as you can see, there's lots of layers in the Earth's crust where they have gone through to collect this iron ore. Doesn't look very pretty. Probably wouldn't want to live next to a steel mining pit. And we use a lot of steel here in the world. Every 3 minutes, we create enough iron ore to make an Eiffel Tower. It is the most energy consuming activity in the world. And a lot of this process uses coal, which is a very dirty, heavily polluting resource. And to create steel from the iron ore, we have to do what's called smelting, where we add another product to it and melt it down. And this creates a lot of pollution. So this is an example of a smelting factory. So all of this dirty air pollution is filled with very harmful particulates, things like nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and sulfur dioxide. And these are very damaging, not only for the health of the planet, but for human health as well. So it definitely affects the people that live nearby this factory. And there's a lot of waste that's created in the manufacturing of steel. So if that waste is not properly managed, if it's done in a country that doesn't have environmental laws and regulations, sometimes that can leach into the waterways and create water pollution. Now, I don't know about you, but most rivers I've seen are not this bright orange. It does not look very healthy. And so anyone that gets their drinking water from here and all the plants and animals, they have this tainted water supply now because of the coking process. Now, to create aluminum, we mine something called bauxite ore. So this is done in open pit minings. And as you can see, they don't have to dig very deep in here, but it does really damage the earth. We use a lot of aluminum in the world as well. We extract 130 million tons each year. And it takes 4 tons of this bauxite ore to make 1 ton of aluminum. So it's a very wasteful process. And it is the most polluting of the processes that we're going to talk about. 50% of the bauxite ore is mined using coal, which has a really negative effect on a plant's health and our health. And this process creates something called perfluorocarbons, which are up to 10 times more strong than carbon dioxide. So it's really, really bad on air pollution and air quality. And this is what's coming out of the processing facility. They add chemicals and they add other materials in order to get it to its liquid form and to purify it to become aluminum. So this is an example of the processing facility. And this is a picture of toxic red sludge. So because it takes so much bauxite ore to make the aluminum, a lot of the wastewater um, damages nearby waterways and environments and ecosystems. So sometimes in developing countries, they don't have the infrastructure to hold all of this wastewater. So it overflows into these open pits. And whenever they get heavy rains or storms, these things can overflow into nearby communities. So crude oil, that is what we use to create plastic. And the extraction of crude oil, this non-renewable natural resource, is the largest contributor to carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere. So this is the #1 offender for greenhouse gas emissions. And we are running out of oil. Some studies suggest that there's only 53 years left of the world's oil supply if we use at the current rates that we are. There's a few different methods for extracting crude oil to purify it into plastics. One is fracking, where they drill down into the Earth's crust and they pump it full of water, which is then contaminated to try to get out little pieces of oil deposits, which are then collected and refined. We also have offshore drilling. So these are some drilling rigs, and sometimes you might hear about an oil spill where the cargo ship that's transporting this oil has an accident, and all of the oil on the ship spills into the ocean and can really hurt wildlife. There's also land-based drilling. These things drill from oil deposits in the Earth's crust, and then they are refined. And this is a picture of an oil refinery. So these flares are burning off methane, and all that black smoke is going right into our atmosphere. This is another example of an oil refinery, and they use a lot of chemicals to refine the crude oil into our plastic. It releases methane, carbon dioxide, and toxic chemicals. And a lot of communities are really suffering when the oil refineries are within them. Here's some pictures of the negative effects of crude oil when things go wrong. So here we have a seabird that is just drenched in oil from an oil spill. Here's an example of them trying to put out a fire that was caused from oil. Plastic in the ocean. So this is a huge problem. And if you ever go to any of the rivers or Lake Erie, if you walk along the shoreline, you're guaranteed to see a lot of these plastic materials. And when plastic goes into our waterways, it doesn't break down like food might in a compost pile. It breaks up into smaller and smaller pieces. And the smaller the pieces are, the more likely birds and fish might eat them and think that they're food. And then they have plastic inside of them. Also, fracking creates a lot of problems for people that live nearby. So it puts methane into the water supply if it's not done correctly. And this person is turning on their faucet and it's lighting on fire. The Cuyahoga River near Cleveland actually caught on fire several times back in the 1960s and 70s because of crude oil. And so it started a national movement called the Environmental Protection Agency, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. All these things came out of this huge oil spill, which caught the river on fire. So it's important that we recycle because the more we recycle, the less natural resources we have to use, the less negative environmental damage is incurred, and it helps us to be better stewards of our planets. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that we can recycle, and hopefully when you go home today, you can help start recycling. So we recycle aluminum and metal. Remember that aluminum is made from an open pit mining, and this mining process creates a lot of pollution. So we want to save our planet from unnecessary mining by recycling things like beverage cans, food cans, and tin cans. We also want to limit our use of oil. So, in order to not use as much oil, which is needed to make plastics, we can A, use less plastic, and B, we can recycle plastics at home. So, depending on what recycling program you use, you might have different rules about what types of plastics can go into your recycling bin. So, make sure you check locally before you put it in there. But recycling these plastics saves 66% of the energy that it would take to get the oil to make virgin plastic. Most commonly, all recycling programs will accept number ones and twos or things that are shaped like a bottle or jug. We want to look for a head and shoulders. That means we have the top half is smaller than the body. And these can go right in your recycling bin. Paper and cardboard are great recyclable materials. So, since we're quarantining, we're staying at home, we're ordering a lot more stuff online, and all that stuff comes shipped to us in cardboard boxes. So, the more cardboard and paper we can recycle, the less trees we have to cut down, and the more energy we can save. If we recycle 1 ton of paper, that saves 17 trees. And all the things in this picture can be recycled. We can also recycle glass. So glass food and beverage containers. And glass is a great recyclable material because we can recycle it an infinite number of times. That means that we can recycle it again and again and again. And I am going to share a link to a virtual tour of a material recovery facility. So that is a fancy name for a recycling facility. And you'll see what happens to the recyclables that you put in your bin and how they go to a material recovery facility and become new products. So thanks for recycling. Talk to you later.